G'day guys, it's the Aussie engineer here again. Today I'm going to take you through the installation for Ubuntu 22.04, which is the latest version out there. Alright, so let's crack straight into it with getting involved in the first steps. So I'll show all the links, I'll shove them down below in the description to make life easy for you. However, the first thing we want to do is head along to ubuntu.com and then download the specific software. Now, of note for this one, guys, for the desktop version, there are a couple of versions for it. I always recommend getting the LTS version, which stands for long-term support. This makes sure you've got at least 5 years of security and maintenance updates. So from today, you're guaranteed until, for that version, at least 2027. It reduces you having to update as often. Secondly, just to answer the questions before they happen, you'll note that there's a number of different versions along the top. The two that relate most to, I guess, the applications that I use and probably the ones you'll be doing as well, are the desktop and server versions. The key difference between these two is the desktop version includes a GUI, whilst the server is all command line driven. They both use the exact same kernels and have for a number of years now. So things that run on one will run on the other. But for a lot of things, I guess it comes down to whether you need or want the GUI. There are additional overheads, obviously, for running the desktop version with that GUI over the server. So it depends. Do you want it in a box with the screen, keyboard sitting in front of you, or do you want to remote into it all the time? Just for reference, so a lot of my things I set up in server, and then I SSH into those servers to install the packages through Docker or Portainer or things like that. All right, so once you've decided on whether you're going for either the current version or the current LTS version, download it. Once you've downloaded that, the next step is to burn a boot media. In this case, we're going to use a USB drive. I use software called Etcher, which is the recommended software by Ubuntu. In short, it's pretty simple once you get inside here. Just come along, select the image that you've just downloaded. In this case, this is 22.04, which is the one we've just downloaded, the LTS version. Select your USB drive. Once you've done that, hit flash. Now, this is going to take a bit of time. In my instance, it's going to take about 5 minutes to complete. So I'll come back once we've got this completed. Okay, guys, now that we've managed to throw a USB into our target system, we've got to open up the BIOS. In the case of the Dell Optiplex that I'm using, it's the F2 key. Well, it's either F2 or F12 because I kept smashing those two. So there, we just want to boot now off that USB drive that we burnt a couple of minutes ago. And then it's pretty simple, to be honest, from then. We want to install. All right, sweet. Now that it's loaded in, we can have a crack at actually setting this thing up. All right, so come along and just select, I guess, what I'd say are your specific localization options. And then just erase the previous distance inside there. Now, guys, I'm taking you through just now the the setup for this using the GUI version of it, not the server, Ubuntu server. I actually generally on these sort of boxes and my project boxes don't use the standard version. I will generally use the server version. Key to that is overhead. So this box that I'm setting up at the moment, I'm taking you through how to set it up, but once it's set up, once I've made this video to show you, I'll actually doing a second video to show you how to set up the GUI, because I'll be using this for a web server and you don't need this sort of thing. So it'll sit then in my server box, which, as I said, means it doesn't really need to have any graphical output on it whatsoever. And indeed, I'll connect to it using FTP and SSH to edit the different files to put them onto my web server. And this is why, like I talked earlier in the video about, as we're waiting for this to install, pick your use case. So when it comes to hardware, when it comes to software, I'm a big believer that you need to be very careful in what you actually want to do with something, because you can buy the world's biggest, hummingest beast of a machine that will do everything, except it's not efficient for power, it's not efficient for initial setup cost, and you can end up, I guess, creating some minor nightmares for yourself. Like, you don't want to be on your gaming rig hosting your web server as you're playing stuff for a whole bunch of different reasons. So for example, at the moment, I have two of the mini PCs, both of them are Dell. Both were picked up secondhand through, their ex-government computers. So I have two of them. One of them runs my NVR and my own cloud instances. I have a Pi 4 that runs my Home Assistant network, and then this last box will run my web server. And I guess there's the other bit. So in terms of cost, the cost and the power draw from those three is less than my gaming computer by an order of magnitude. All right, so we're just about installed on this. All right, so the last bit we'll do is a quick restart now. All right, guys, now that we've rebooted, one of the things I like to do just to check that we're up and running is to run a speed test. Just gives a bit of an indication to make sure stuff is working as it should be, noting the funny flickering, which is a result of the capture card that I'm using at the moment. But everything looks G to G at the moment. From here, I would now normally, install the software, set it up as I would want to. In this instance, though, I will be reformatting her. As this box will be running as my web server. I don't need the GUI. So in about 5 minutes, I'll start making the video of how to set it up to Ubuntu server, and followed by how to actually set up a web server on one of these. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. It's pretty easy. Ubuntu is a really easy thing to set up. But if you've got any questions about it or what I do or why I pick different hardware, please hit us up below and I can add stuff to my video creation list. As always, guys, have yourself a great day out there.